Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kakuyo. The title of today's Dharma talk is It Will Never Be Easy. Before we get into that, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. So we ran into a little bit of a problem recently here on the homestead. As you know, if you've been following the channel for a while, I garden in garden beds instead of planting in ground. I do that for a couple of reasons. One, it raises the plants off the ground about 12 inches so I don't have to bend so low when I'm planting and weeding. Also, it allows us to isolate the vegetables from one another. We don't need to worry about the tomatoes taking over the carrots or anything like that. And finally, it allows us to isolate problems that might occur. If one garden bed fails, it doesn't mean that the others will fail, and we only have that specific area that we need to deal with. This became very important recently when we had an infestation of pill bugs, also known as roly-polies. Those are the small beetles you'll see sometimes crawling around under rotten logs in the forest. And what's very good about them is they're very good for the soil because they eat rotten vegetation and their manure enriches the soil. However, they're very bad for seedlings because they eat the new sprouts, and of course, if they eat the sprouts, we don't get vegetables. So I tried various things, and I realized that in this one particular bed, I would not be able to remediate the pill bug problem. I just needed to clean it out, put in new soil, and start from scratch. So that's what I did today. I put the soil into the wheelbarrow and I used it to fill some holes we have here on the property. Good for the pill bugs, good for me. However, I did have one funny experience because it was about 85 degrees today, a little warmer than I would like, and I'm doing some manual labor, moving pounds of earth around in the wheelbarrow, and it was hot and I was sweaty and my mind started to grumble a little bit. And then I remembered that it was only 6 months ago, not even that I was complaining because it was too cold, that it was snowy and icy. And 3 months ago, it was too rainy. And I remembered something that I often have to remind myself of, which is that the weather is never exactly what I want it to be here on the homestead. It's dry when I want it to be wet, it's hot when I want it to be cold. Things are never exactly what I want. And if I waited around for the exact right weather conditions to happen, I would never get anything done. So I work when it's hot, I work when it's raining, I work when it's cold. If it's hot, I sweat. If it's cold, I freeze. But I keep going because that's what life requires. And this is important because it comes from a Buddhist teaching I found in the Fire Sermon, which is a terrific passage that was given by the Buddha many years ago. I'm going to read a bit of it right now, and then I'd encourage you to read the whole thing on your own time. In this passage, the Buddha says, "The mind is burning. Ideas are burning. Mind consciousness is burning. Mind contact is burning. Also, whatever is felt as pleasant or painful or neither painful nor pleasant, that arises with mind contact for its indispensable condition, that too is burning." Burning with what? Burning with the fires of lust, with the fires of hate, with the fires of delusion. I say it is burning with birth, aging, and death, with sorrows and lamentations, with pains, with griefs, with despairs. That's pretty intense. And what the Buddha is saying in no uncertain terms is that our life is a lot like the weather. It will never be what we want. It will never be easy. So if we're waiting for the perfect conditions for happiness to arise, well, we'll just never be happy. But if we're willing to do the things that create happiness for ourselves and for others, if we're willing to live lives filled with wisdom and compassion, sympathetic joy and equanimity, if we're willing to abide by the Buddha's teachings, even when it's difficult, What we'll find is that even in the midst of that suffering, we will find satisfaction, contentment, and dare I say, happiness. The same happiness I experience here on the homestead. It's too hot, it's too cold, but because I continue doing the things I enjoy, namely gardening, caring for animals, and building things, even in the midst of the heat, even in the midst of the cold, I'm content. And this is true for all of us. Unfortunately, we here in the West have been taught that we need to bide our time. We need to hunker down. We need to not do things until they're easy, until the time is right. But what Buddha is telling us is that we need to do things that need to be done when they need to be done. Not when we feel like doing them. Not when it's easy to do them, because it will never be easy. Rather, we just deal with the problem in front of us and we move on to the next, regardless of the conditions. And if we do that, we will find that in the midst of all of our sorrow and lamentations, there will be joy. Amitabha.